like I've always said, it's easy to be a failure. It's easy to fail at anything. Why? Because you just don't do anything. If you don't do anything, you'll be a failure. But to be a success at anything, losing weight, is stopping an addiction, whether it be drugs, whether it be alcohol, whether it be porn, it's hard. You have to stop that. So you have to really do it. You have to decide who's in charge. Are you in charge or your negative impulses are in charge? All right, you know what time it is. It's the Wise and the Wise Guy time. I'm Chazz Palminteri,
The Wise, and I'm Michael Franzese.
the Wise Guy.
And here we are back again. This is the probably the last one for 2023, Chaz.
Yeah. Oh my God. Wow. Imagine that. 2023.
I,
Huh.
I'm telling you the truth. When I hear the numbers, and I can't believe it, Chaz. I'm 72 years old this year.
Yep. Same.
It's funny when I hit 60. Okay, 60 is not too bad, but 70 is a number that kind of sticks in your head.
I got to tell you, when you hit that number, man, I know it's like 70. Wait a minute. When I was a kid, somebody who was 70 was gone. They were like one foot in the grave already. You know
I
what I mean? So, but it's different. Well, now they say 70 is the new 50 or new
Yeah.
60, whatever, you know.
And I kind of believe that because people are living longer and the
Yeah.
advances in medicine and health, it's still those 70, you still start to
Yeah.
realize, okay, time is getting a little bit shorter. And
Right.
but it's been a crazy year. What were the highlights for you this year?
Wow. Well, yeah, I think, finally shooting, the one man show, putting it on film for the first time, and finally completing that after all these years of wanting to do it. Then finally, it's actually just like you said. I said to myself, I've been doing this thing over 35 years. If I don't do it now, when am I going to do it? And I'm young enough and healthy enough to do this. And so I raised the money myself, and I raised the money. I paid for it myself, and I said, "All right, let's do it." And we did it with 5 cameras, and it came out great. And I'll be having some announcements later on this year about what we're going to do with it and where it's going to go. And so I'm excited about that. I would say that was probably my highlight, and just just getting through the year, everybody healthy, and I don't worry about highlights anymore so much, Michael. I just worry about let's all be healthy and let's all be together.
Well, I agree. And just since I was fortunate enough to see a little trailer or an excerpt of the show, it's
Yeah.
a special treat for people. And the way you shot it and filmed it, Chaz, listen, it's an accomplishment, a major accomplishment, just to be doing that one man show for all of these years, over 30 years, plus the movie that
Yeah.
was spawned from that and everything that's coming. I think the audience is going to be in for a real treat when it finally gets out there.
Yeah, and I'd like to tell our audiences out there, because I always tell people actually on mine, if you don't mind, if people want to come and see me, just go to chazzpalminteri.net and they can come and see me. And I'll be in Florida in January, and all you got to do is go to chazzpalminteri.net. I'll be in Orlando. I'll be in the Kravitz Center in Palm Beach. So I'll be all over there. And also in January 12th, no, January 21st, I'll be at the Paramount Theater in Huntington, where it was filmed for the first time. So it's a lot of good things happening. How about you, Michael? You're looking for the new year?
I am, big. I have a big tour coming up in the United Kingdom. I'll
Oh,
be
that's right.
in Monaco, and also I'm excited about going to Scandinavia for the first time. I've never been there, so that'll be in February. And so we have a lot of good things coming up. And don't forget, January 25th, it's me, you, and Iron Mike Tyson at the Beacon Theater in New
That's
York.
right. Mike Tyson, Michael Francis, and Chazz Palminteri. Where did this combo come together? But I'll be moderating with you and Mike and you and Tyson, and that's going to be really exciting. I mean, talk about lives between the three of us. similar, but all obviously altogether different. And all of us have a different take on things. So it should be really exciting that night.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I know Mike is, and it's going to be an interesting night. We're titling it Remade Men. Obviously, we've all been remade in some way, shape, or form. And
Yes.
we have a lot of interesting things to say that I think haven't been said before. So it's going to be a good night. We're looking forward.
Yeah, I agree. And Mike Tyson, people who don't know, uh, never spoke with him or saw him in person. He's a very engaging man, very smart, really smart about life and about things that he's done, mistakes he's done, and how he turned his life around, and obviously his accomplishments. And I've always said, you know what, Michael, everybody who has ever seen my show, every actors, I'm talking about big actors, came to me and said, oh my God, a one man show. That's so, I've always wanted to do that. I'm going to try, I'm going to write, but nobody ever does it. Mike Tyson, the heavyweight champion of the world, saw my show twice, and cried and said, I am going to do that. And you know what? He did it. He actually did it. And it was successful. It was on Broadway, like mine was, and he was a success. And I always say, man, holy shit. A one man show is a monumental task. The work involved, oh my God. And of all the people, the heavyweight champion of the world did it. So my hat goes off to him every time I have to tell that story because I had actors that if I mentioned their names, you would know who they are. Yeah, I'm going to do a one man show. I'm going to do it. They don't do it. They realize how hard it is going in. But Tyson, well, Tyson did it, man. Him and his wife. Let me say, it was written by him and his wife. Kiki, and they did a great job.
Yeah, it's very challenging, and I can see why few people don't do it, or the majority of people don't do it because it's tough. It really
It's
is.
hard.
And to pull it off like that, to be all those different characters and to actually take that image of them, it was unbelievable. And yeah, Mike is a character people don't understand. I think all the experiences he's had, both good and bad, have made him very
Yeah.
nice. Really, really. So it's going to be a good night. We're all looking forward to it. And I know the VIP tickets are just about sold out. So we're going to be busy on the meet and greet. I know that. Um,
Right. And what is the date on that? Let me get the date. Was it the
January 25th.
January 25th?
It's a
Okay.
Thursday night at the Beacon Theater in Manhattan. And we'll see how it goes.
That's how it goes. Yeah, that should be fun.
Yeah, Chaz, when I think back, there was a time in my life when things were kind of turbulent for me, I would say. I didn't know if I was going to make it to 2023,
Wow.
2024, but, it gives you a kind of understanding, and for me, I have up days and down days, we all do, but I'm thankful every day just to be alive and to be free and
Yes.
you look back at all the stuff that's going on in the world. I mean, we had a tough year worldwide, I would say. But
Yes.
very fortunate to be through this Christmas holiday to be with our friends and family and to be able to enjoy it. And I think all those people that were in the same situation and able to enjoy what we had to offer this year should be very thankful. Really.
Oh no, no question. I mean, without a doubt, I'm hoping that I'm just concerned that this year might even be tougher than last year, world-wise. So I hope you know I just hope that we all come together somehow uh, and have peace because the world is in tough shape right now. Tough shape. Yeah.
Well, it's not looking good. A lot of people are predicting a very tough 2024. I haven't heard anybody say that it was going to be better.
Yeah.
We have an election year coming up. That's always turmoil, around
Yeah.
here. But hey, I tell people all the time, you control what you can control, and the rest you just
Right.
try to prepare and deal with the best you can.
Right. Yeah. When I used to, you remember when you were, maybe in your 20s and you would see your parents and then you hit your 30s and And then you see your parents just nothing bothers them anymore. They just, what are you going to do? That's the famous line of Italians, right? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? And my father used to say that, and my mother would say that. And I go, man, they don't give a shit. I mean, I understand now. Now that I'm, at my age, I just go, my son goes, but dad, and my daughter goes, this is going to happen. I go, you know what? You can't control it. What are you going to do? And I feel the same way. I'm not going to get myself sick over things that I can't control. I'm just not. I'm not. Just not. You know.
No, it doesn't pay, and I know you get probably a lot of messages online. I do, and people are struggling, and I tell them, listen, you got to make the best out of your situation, control what you can control. The rest is out of your hands, and just be
Right.
prepared as best you can for whatever comes down. That's all we can do. Life is so uncertain. Chaz, I tell people all the time, you know, when you're doing the right thing and everything is good, you're doing everything the right way, things happen,
Yes.
unexpected things happen that you can't control. So what are you going to do? The best thing is try to do the right thing. Don't put extra baggage on your back by making
Right.
wrong decisions and suffering consequences, and just deal with everything the best that you can. And that's the best advice I think you can give people.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, you have all these self-help books and self-help podcasts, and we're part of it. We try to help people. But if you think about it, if you really think of the essence of living a good life, every decision that you make in life, it's persist or resist, one or the other. If you persist something that you know is bad for you, and you know it, I mean, there's going to be bad things that happen. If you try to do the right thing all the time, usually good things happen. Now, there was a wonderful book called "Bad Things Happen to Bad Things Happen to Good People." It was a good book, and you can live your life perfect, and bad shit happens to you. You and the opposite is true. You can live your life like a bad, and sometimes good things happen to you. You'll end up screwing it up, but it's like I remember speaking to my shrink one time, uh, and if you go on Netflix, he was Dr. Phil Stutz. They did a whole documentary on him. Jonah Hill did it, which is brilliant. And he's a brilliant psychiatrist. And I talked with him and I said, but what about, I remember when I was a young actor, I said, but what about the people who don't do everything right and still become successful? I never forgot because it bothered me. I said, how could it be these certain actors, they become huge and famous and they do everything wrong? Because I wanted an answer from him, Michael. I said, so tell me why they become famous and people who do the right thing don't. And he said to me, and I'll never forget it, people who do everything wrong and still become successful have the worst faith. And I said, what do you mean by that? And he said, because they're so successful and so money comes to them and fame, but they look at themselves and they look at themselves as a piece of shit and they're not worth it. And they are the most unhappiest. And I was like, yeah, wow. And he said, because most of them self destruct, most of them drugs, alcohol, some commit suicide, some commit suicide by accidentally. And he goes, they always feel unhappy because they're bad people, he said, Chaz. And all this good fortune comes to them and they don't understand it and they feel like they're not worth it. And I never forgot that. And he said, that's the worst fate you could have. And I was like, wow.
So true, Chaz, and we've seen that time and time again in your industry. And I can tell you, there's no better example than that than the mob life, Cosa Nostra Mafia.
Yeah.
And so many of us, were successful on the street, and had a lot of money, had notoriety, had power, and 9 out of 10 98% meet with a terrible fate in the end. You just can't accomplish things in life that way and expect it to have a happy ending. It just doesn't happen. You can call it fate, you can call it karma. As Christians, we believe,
Right.
in something differently, but it doesn't work out in the end. It really doesn't.
Right. But and your life, your previous life, it fascinates me because I've always said, and I would write about it, is that if I know that if I walk out of my back door of my house and I get hit with a bag of garbage on the head, I'm not walking out that back door anymore. I'm saying, oh, wow, you know what? I can't go out that door because bad shit happens to me. And it's amazing. The guys in your life, the soldiers, and then they become capos and captains, they know, they could see that everybody who's in that life goes to jail. And still they do it. You would think now I used to say, are they not smart? But then I meet people like you, and I mean, you're brilliant. Seriously, I mean that sincerely. Are you not smart that you don't know this is going to happen to you? You're going to end up dead or in jail or in the witness protection program. It's going to happen. So why are you doing this? Is the devil that strong that keeps these guys doing it? Is the money that strong that says I can't do anything else? How does that happen, Michael?
Chaz, money and power is such powerful, aphrodisiacs, I would call them. And,
Yeah,
I think you try to, you tell yourself, well, it's not going to happen to me, or it's not that bad, or I can beat it. In my own life, when I got that high profile, I knew eventually I was going to take a fall. It was just a question of how bad. And
right.
what's come to me lately, Chaz? It's amazing. I guess maybe because all the stuff going on, and people really look up to guys in my former life. They look up to the stand-up guys, which I think there's something could be said about that. But
Yeah.
what you don't realize that throughout our life on the street, I mean, we would rob people, we murdered people. I mean, I got to be honest,
Yeah.
we extorted people, and I'm saying to myself, well, why would you look up to a person like that? Okay, he stood up, but look at the damage that he did in his life, and it's becoming increasingly more clear to me, and only in the later years for some reason, and especially this year for some reason. I would want people to look at me for hopefully what I'm doing now, the fact that I have a family and been able to raise good kids, and do a little bit of good after all the damage that we did on the street for 20 years. And I try to figure out, well, why is that so attractive to people? And why? And I don't know. I guess I always say
Yeah.
it's the industry, it's the media, it's the way people are portrayed. Even though they're always at the end, they always have a bad ending. It's always
Always. And that's why, I think that's why, you know, if you look at Bronx Tale, the movie, the play, the musical, when Sonny says, when the boy says, "Is it better to be loved or feared?" And Sonny says, "In my world, it's better to be feared. Maybe in the regular world, obviously, it's better to be loved." But Sonny is very pragmatic about it and says, "In this world, it's better to be feared because people won't make a move on you because you're dealing with people who, if they see weakness, the life is that they will jump on you and they will take advantage of you." So he says, "In my world, it's better to be feared," and I think that's why the movie resonates and the play resonates with all these people for so many years because it just makes people think, makes people ask the same questions that you and I are asking right now. Why? Why do they still do it? Why? You
well,
know?
it's not only that. And look, I've seen every good mob movie out there, and Bronx Tale is the only one that really tries to give a positive message to a young man,
Yeah.
by a mob guy. And even though I'm not saying that that doesn't happen in real life, I mean, there are guys that, try to dissuade people from that life. I mean, my father
Right.
originally didn't want that life for me, but there's no other movie that shows that. Maybe The Godfather a little bit, a little bit,
Yes.
but it was the only movie where Sonny actually tried to give a good message to that young man, and
Yeah.
it meant something.
And people have asked me about that. Why did he do that? And I say because I mean, he would always say, do what I say, not what I do. And I thought for some, and this is me just romanticizing. I think it's possible that I was his penance. Like he said, I fucked up my life. I've done so many bad things. If I'm going to do something, one thing good, it's going to be I help this kid and making sure I could send him off like
Yeah.
good. And that's just my thoughts. Maybe it wasn't his, but God, maybe just God told me that why would this guy be nice to me and and just say, hey man, no, don't do this. You're a smart kid. I don't know. Who knows?
No, I think so. And something that was very profound to me, maybe a lot of people missed it because I'm so in tune. When Sonny sat there and he's talking to Kalojo and he says, I make a joke, everybody laughs. I know I'm funny, but I'm not that funny. So he's trying to explain, what that life
Right.
is really all about and what his
Yeah.
power meant to the guys. That was a very profound. I don't even know if you realize it, but to somebody like me, it was very
Yeah.
profound.
Because he says fear, they're loyal to me because of fear.
Yeah.
And then he switches it again and he says, then he says, and they love me, but he goes, I give them, he goes, I give them a little, but not too much, because if I give them too much, then they become independent from me. I
Right.
give them just enough where they need me, but they don't hate me. I mean, I
Very.
don't know. I was in some kind of flow state when I wrote all this. Um,
No, but
I,
it was true. I mean, those words are absolutely true. But here's what happens in the end, and there's no question that fear is the motivating factor to keep people in line. But I always say what happened in our life is the fear of the street was transferred to the fear of the government when they came down with the RICO statute and told everybody, you're going to jail for the rest of your life unless you cooperate. Don't worry about it. We'll put you in a program. We'll give you some money and we'll put your guy away forever. So you don't have to worry about it. So that
right.
fear was transferred. Fear is very, very powerful uh,
Yeah.
for the person that, holds that, the person you're in fear of. It's powerful, but pray that it doesn't get, transferred. But then I always say this, love is really the true factor because when you love somebody and really love them, you don't want to hurt them. And it just exposed the entire life, Chazz. There was really no loyalty. There really was no love. It was all about fear. That's what it was about.
It exposed it. You're right. The RICO Act actually is because that's the thing that broke the mob was the RICO Act. That stopped it dead. People say John Gotti busted it. No, he had nothing to do with that. It's the RICO Act. Once they did that, once they can nail you for being associated, wow, that was it. That was
Yeah.
it.
And there's a lot of things that got me, and I look at my dad, who obviously I love, and I appreciate the fact that, he was a stand-up guy until the end. You can't dispute that. But then you look at, when my mother was passing away, and I spent months with her before she did, and my mother and dad had a very volatile relationship. I mean, very, very volatile, right? I was a referee between them many times, but I would always stand up for my dad. I would always stick up for him and against my mom. And then last couple of months before she passed, I spent a lot of time with her and she opened up to me like she never had before. And I said, you know what? Yeah, okay, it's great to be a stand-up guy, but you destroy your family in the process. What is that really all about? And
What is
some
that
of
all
the
about?
guys have done that. The guys that did stand up before Rico and didn't have all that scrutiny, the families were destroyed. So it's like, pick your poison. What's more important to you? And I don't want to comment on it because I don't want to say who's right and who's wrong, but I know in my
Right,
my mind, I know it became right for me.
right. Yeah, yeah. No, exactly, exactly. I mean, It's interesting how we fall into that and we talk about it like this because we're both fascinated with it. Because obviously you were in the life, I was never in the life, but I grew up with the life around me, and it's just I don't know. People just are fascinated by it, and I think that, and I think we still are. I still don't get it. I s- I still don't get it. I really don't. But I
Wow.
go, yeah, how you can look at a guy who guys like we know, like Scarpa with the Green Reaper, whatever his name, I forgot. Roy DeMeo.
Frank Scarpa, yeah, DeMeo.
Yeah, you can look at these guys and go, what? But taking it so far, but who are these people? How does this happen? It's just fascinating to me,
You
I
know, I've
just
said this about Greg and Roy DeMeo. These guys would have been bad guys whether they joined the life or not.
right, right.
Life just gave them a platform.
Yeah, you're right.
It didn't make them who they are. They were who they were. I mean, Roy DeMeo was an insane guy. I mean, there's no
Right.
question about it.
Yeah, if he didn't
And
kill,
Greg,
if he didn't kill, yeah, if he would have killed his family or something,
yeah, I
right?
mean, he was just that kind of guy, and Greg Scarpa in many ways too. But the life gave them a platform and allowed it to get even greater than it might have been had they not been involved in the life, I would say. But let me ask
Right.
you this. Moving on, I got to tell you this. I go to the gym 2, 3 times a week. I know that you work out in your house. I go to
Yes.
the gym the day after Christmas on the 26th, right? I
Yeah.
couldn't even get into the gym. I'm kind of I go to station to station. I'm not like a bodybuilder and all that, but I do my workout at each station.
Yeah.
And the way my gym is laid out, it works perfectly. I can go right down the line. I couldn't even get into my stations. And I'm saying, okay, the day after Christmas, everybody ate. Now I know they're going to making their New Year's resolutions.
Absolutely.
Going to be packed. And then come around mid-February, early March, it goes right back to normal. Why is it, Chaz? We all make these resolutions and we're firm and with it, and then within
Yeah.
a couple of weeks, it's all gone. What do you think?
Yeah. I know because I have friends who own gyms and they say the biggest sign up is January, January, and maybe even the beginning of February. Then come around March, bam, because you want to do it. You know what? This year I'm doing it. Yes, I'm going to lose 50 pounds. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Okay, it's easy to say it, but now you got to do it. Now you really got to do it. And you know what? Some people just can't, are not up to the task. That's it.
But don't you think that's true of every resolution that people make?
Yes.
You know, and why is it? Do you think that they all start out gung ho, New Year, we're going to do all of this, and then I would say a great percentage of the population it just falls off and they go right back into normal stuff.
Well, that's because it's hard. That's really what it comes down to. It's really hard. You're gung ho for like the first 2 weeks, and you see a little progress, and then some people go, all right, I could eat a little more now. Now I could, and just boom, it slips right back. And you know what? Like I've always said, it's easy to be a failure. It's easy to fail at anything. Why? Because you just don't do anything. If you don't do anything, you'll be a failure. But to be a success at anything, losing weight, uh, stopping an addiction, whether it be drugs, whether it be alcohol, whether it be porn, it's hard. You have to stop that. So you have to really do it. You know what it comes down to, and I'll never forget it. I'm trying to think where I read this. I read all these. Uh, I can't remember the book, but the book said you have to decide who's in charge. Are you in charge, or your negative impulses are in charge? And it kind of gets you a little upset. I'm in charge. Okay, well, if you're in charge, then don't do it. Then don't do it. But it's hard, man. It's hard, and I'm not perfect, and and I'll say I'm not going to have. Um, whatever. I'm not going to eat this. Sometimes I don't like, I love pasta. I'll go, I'm only eating pasta on Sunday. Sunday I'll have it and that's it. Then during the week I'll come home and my wife will make something and I'll just go, and sometimes I say no, but sometimes I lose it and I have it. Is that the worst thing in the world? No, but I wasn't in charge. I lost it. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to drink. I'm not. It's hard, man. It's very hard. You know.
It is. And I think, I think for all those out there that are going to make resolutions, be realistic. Don't pile them on and say, all right, I'm going to do 10 things or 5 things. I tell
Right.
kids this. I said, be realistic,
Right.
with what your resolution is, even if it's one thing that you do your best to stick to rather. Um,
Yeah.
and when it comes to working out, it is hard to, I'm telling you, Chaz, it took me literally 2 years before I decided to work out because I knew mentally, emotionally, I wasn't ready. And I said, why am I going
Right.
to start? I'm not going to finish. I got so many
Right.
things that I'm doing. It's not going to happen. But when I finally
Right.
made up my mind, then okay, I was ready and I stuck to it. So, and that goes with anything, whatever you're going to do, just know that, hey, I've come to a point in my life where I'm ready for this and I'm going to do it and I'm going to make it happen. And
Right.
and that's when I think you can really stick to it and
Yeah.
make a
Like
change.
I had a friend. I had a friend who was smoking. This is a few years ago. And how anybody could smoke now is beyond my comprehension. With all the knowledge and information they have, I'm just like astounded by it.
I
So
agree.
this guy used to smoke, and I used to tell him, I say, man, and he said, I can't stop, Chaz. I tried. And then I remember from reading these books about habit that it said you have to make the habit bigger than what it really is. And not lying to yourself, but truly make it bigger in your mind. Because if you make it like, oh, I just can't have this cigarette, you won't do it. You'll do it. But if you make it where you're about to take the cigarette and you picture yourself not being there for your daughter's wedding, not being there for your son's wedding, you picture that smoke going in your lungs and destroying your lungs and blackening them and making your lungs look like a muffin. If you say that all to yourself before you do it, you'll stop. It'll help you stop. But if it's just, oh, I can't eat that chocolate cake. I promised I wouldn't eat sweets. You're going to eat that sweets. But if you re or the orientation, change your orientation of the thing you're trying to stop and say, if I eat this chocolate cake right now, that food and that fat and all that junk is going to go in around my heart and it's going to squeeze my heart to death. I can't eat that cake. It'll help you not eat it. And it, you know what? And I do all that and it helps me a lot. It helps me a lot.
No, I agree with that. I remember when I was in school and they showed some really graphic demonstrations of what your lungs look like after smoking.
Oh,
I never smoked in my life. Number one, because my dad never did, and I was the only one in the family, just me and him, that never smoked. Everybody else did, but that made
yeah.
a vivid, impression on me. And I said,
Right.
man, I don't ever want my insides to look like that. And also without getting into the politics of it, I'm not doing that. Some of the uh, what can I? Some of the places that are against abortion, when they show women what happens to a baby during the abortion process, women say, hey, I'm not going to do that because it's
Mm.
so vivid, so I'm just trying to demonstrate that some of the best explanations or demonstrations are showing the result of what could happen to you if you have a bad habit or you're doing something that's wrong. uh,
Yeah.
it changes your whole outlook or perspective on what it is that you're engaged in.
Yeah. If you look at it, if you're just looking for what it is, that's easy in anything. But if you take it to the next level, you'll feel, wow, I can't take that cigarette. I can't eat this chocolate cake. And I have to work out because if you don't, people don't realize people in their 70s 60s, 70s, 80s. If they fall, which have a lot of people do, and break their hip, they're usually dead within 2 years, they
Yeah,
say. Within 2 years. You know, so when you work out, you're building your body, you're building they prove now it's even bigger than they prove that a thing that keeps you young is your muscle skeleton. Will help you stay younger and live longer. From one, from obviously not falling because your legs, you worked out with your legs, your arms, you could grab something. I mean, I've taken some slips in my property where I go, when I get up and I go, "Phew, all right, I'm okay, yeah." I live on the East Coast. There's ice. I'm always careful, but I've taken a few falls where I go, "Oh, I'm all right, okay." But if I wasn't in shape, oh, forget it. Forget it. Forget it. I would be in the hospital, man. So you're protecting yourself. I have to work out. If I don't work out, if I miss one or two workouts in a row, I get crazy. I got to get back. I got to get back for some whatever reason. So that's the beauty. When you work out every day like we do, if you're on the road, if you're in Australia, if you're in Norway doing it, if you miss 4 or 5 days, you know what? You're okay. Bam. Get back to the gym right away. You get right back in shape. So,
absolutely. And I'm the same way. I feel now if I miss a couple of days, I feel, hey, I got to get back. But hey, you
uh,
feel, I recently, I'll confide in you. I had a condition called SIBO. And what it is, it's not serious, but when your digestive system, there's a bacteria in there that doesn't allow you to digest the food. So your
right.
food kind of builds up. Chaz, I would take a drink of water and my stomach would swell. I'd feel
Wow.
so uncomfortable and so bloated. And I said, man, what is this? So I go and I get an upper GI and a lower GI, and they identify that. And I was so miserable. I couldn't put my pants on. I'm
Oh,
saying, what is wrong with me? My stomach was hard as a rock. And
right.
they gave me medication. I lost 11 pounds and it was all in my stomach. And it was the most uncomfortable I think I felt in my entire life. Because fortunately, I don't get sick too often. But I realized, man, you got to keep yourself in shape. Little things like that, just gaining a couple of pounds can just make you feel so miserable.
Oh, anything to do with your look. You could speak to the richest man in the world and you tell him, hey, you want to give up all your money, you'll be healthy. If he's sick, he'll go, absolutely. I'll
Absolutely.
start over. I'll start over right now. It's fine. Nothing, nothing is more important than than health. Nothing. Zero. I don't care what anybody says. Your health is everything. After that, we can make some arguments about what's next. But other than that, health is number one. Anybody will tell you that. What's his name? Steve Jobs said that on his deathbed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. You would have
He
given it
said,
all up.
I'll give it all up right
Yeah.
now to be healthy.
No.
So, you know what? When I'm working out, I go, all right, Chaz, just, and you know what? And it's just, people think they have to spend 4 hours in a gym.
Oh,
Spend 45 minutes, you hit the weights, you do a treadmill. That's all you got to do.
yeah.
You do that 3 times a week. You're okay, babe. You're okay.
So people, we encourage you, start off slow. Don't kill yourself right off the bat because that'll be
Yeah.
discouraging to you. You know,
Yeah.
start off slow and let it build, and you'll be so much happier. No doubt about it. I mean, really. Let me ask you this. I've noticed you've done something right and I've done something wrong. You've got our new shirt on, the Wise and the Wise.
Oh, the
We got
wise and the wise guy. Oh yes, the
yeah, we
new
got we got
new stuff
great
came out.
merchandise. It looks good on you, Chaz.
Well, thanks. Yeah, and I love the back. If you want to get and look at that, that's pretty cool.
Let me tell you
You know,
something. I've
and it
never
says
agreed.
and it says knowledge is power.
I got to tell you, I've never agreed to have my image on any kind of shirt or anything. This is the first time because it's next to you, and you make me
Ah, it's fun.
look good.
No, no, it's a wonderful thing. And how could they get it? They can get it on my website and your website,
Yeah,
right?
both websites, and we'll have a link to it on this
Oh, okay.
video, so they can go on, they can buy it. We got a lot of good stuff and enjoy it, but looks good. We got everything. We got
Yeah, no, it's
shoes, we
great.
got
Now,
shirts.
Michael, how's your wine? Your wine is doing great.
Wine is doing good, Chaz. We picked up some major accounts for 2024, and we're very excited about what 24 looks like. We've had a good year, a good building year. So we're excited. Really, we'll be coming into New York and New Jersey fairly soon. We got a distributor there. So,
Okay, well, that's fantastic, man. I mean, so you got your wine, and that's fantastic, and we got the merchandise. It's fun, man. I enjoy doing podcasts. I love doing it. I just I love sharing and talking and expanding, my knowledge about life and things. And we always encourage people, right, to send in. We do a lot of books over the years. We pick up books and we kind of get 5 questions from the books. And our people should call up the Wise and the Wise guy and ask questions, and we would answer anything they would like to hear, without a doubt.
we've been getting a couple of requests. Maybe when I say market it, we'll announce it for a few days in advance, and we'll do a live where
Yes.
people can ask questions for us.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
A live, would that be on Facebook? Would that be on Facebook or
We
just
could do a YouTube live.
a YouTube live?
Yeah,
Okay.
YouTube live. I think that would be on our channel. We can put it on our channel. I think it would be great. People want to, they ask a lot of questions in our messages. So, and we don't get to respond to all of them because I know you get so many and so do I.
Yeah.
But if we did a live, we can choose and pick out as many as we can and answer them. I think people would really enjoy that.
Michael, I have to, maybe you could answer this question. It was really strange. We were going to church, obviously, on Christmas. And we always go, if we go to the 12 o'clock mass. But we got sidetracked by the dog we just got. It was running around. It was too late, so we couldn't go. But there was a 1:30.
Mhm.
So now we go at 1:30, and I have to ask you about this. So me, my son, my daughter, and my wife go to the 1:30 mass. We get there at 25 after 1. So usually we always go through the back door, always. In all these years, always. But there was the front door there, and Johnny goes, "Oh, let's go through the front door." And I'm like, "What? What?" So we go through the front door. So we're right at the beginning where the first pew is. Okay. So she walks and she sits at the first row. And nobody likes to sit there because you're right on top of the priest. The first row, right where the priest comes out. So I sit there and I'm in awe. I'm looking at her like, what are you doing? We always sit in the back because everybody's looking at me when I get.
Yeah.
So I usually like to sit in the back very quietly and then go out. For some reason, she sits in the first row this time. Never before, never, ever, 30 years, never. We sit there and the priest is there. And so the one priest comes out and he's talking. Then another priest comes out to help with the communion. And while he comes out, he's standing there waiting his turn to do his thing, obviously. And he looks up and sees me and smiles and nods. And I was like, and my daughter looks at me like, did he just recognize? And I said, I don't know. It was kind of strange. Anyway, well, I'm getting to the point, and it was a wonderful mass. We had a great time. So we're leaving, and the woman who was sitting right there next to us was singing, and she had this incredible voice. She was working for the church, and we said, "Oh, you have a wonderful voice," and she said, "Oh, thank you." So my wife starts talking to her, and the woman was very nice. And all of a sudden, my wife goes, "Oh, how you spending Christmas? Whatever." She goes, "Oh, my mother just passed away, and so I don't have any family." So my wife said, "You're alone?" And the woman said, "Yes, but and my wife said, "Why don't you come over the house?" I mean, she just said, "Come on, spend Christmas with us." She goes, we live seriously walking distance to the church. So woman said, and she starts like crying, like tears. And we said, "No, it's okay." She said, "I prayed because my mother just passed away that I would not be alone for Christmas." And she goes, "And look at this." And so she came over, wonderful woman, a very successful and wonderful woman. And she spent Christmas with us. In fact, everybody left and it was just her. And she was real born again Christian.
Mhm.
And she knew everything about Christ. I mean, you mentioned the Bible, you mentioned the sacraments, you mentioned, I've never seen anything like it. It was almost like scary because my son so everybody left and it was just us talking to her. And then she left. And I said to her before she left, I said, this was planned. So we never go to that door. We never walk through the door. We never sit there. We never leave. We don't talk to, we leave right away in the back. And I said, God planned. And she goes, oh yeah. She goes, I told you. I prayed and prayed and prayed, and God made this happen. And and we were talking. So I said, and I should have asked her, how does one know, Michael, when and I don't and we could leave this or not, whatever, if you want. How does one know when one's born again? How does that how does that happen? Does God, because I'm not born again and I'm a Catholic, I go to church, but does God talk to you? Do you decide, you know what? I'm born again and I'm gonna how does that happen? Does it always have to be from a miracle or something like that?
No, it doesn't, Chaz. And it's interesting that you say that because as you said a little bit earlier, we do a lot of books. We talk about books that really have had an impact and that people can learn from. And the next book that I want to review is a book called Is God Real by Lee Strobel.
Yes, I heard of that.
Yeah, it's just came out, and I know Lee personally. I've known him for a while now. Interesting story. We'll get into it in the next podcast. But when you're born again, first of all, the Bible tells us that we have to be born again of the Spirit. And so and that's through baptism. It's through adult baptism when you accept Christ. But, I for one, have never had a dream where God appeared to me.
Okay.
I've never heard him speak to me audibly. But, the relationship that I had with God once I was born again, that I have with God, things start to change for you from the inside out. Your perspective starts to change on things. It's even like I said earlier, one time I used to look up to guys in that life, the stand-up guys, and say, wow, there's something to be said for that. And then I look back and said, but wait a second, in many ways we didn't regard our families properly. We did bad things on the street. We took people's lives and we did things like that. And what am I thinking? Your perspective changes. It's not that you want to do anything about it. It's that your perspective changes on right and wrong and what you should be doing in your life. And I always say the closer you get to God, the closer he gets to you. And it is a feeling that comes over to you. And my perspective on so many things has changed.
Hmm.
My wife said something to me yesterday. It was a little business thing that we had. And she said, this guy is not treating you right, and this and that, and his money and blah, blah, blah. My wife is very definite about things,
Right.
she's very definite. And I said to her, listen, all my life I've been good with money, Cam. I never made it come between me and somebody,
Hmm.
unless I really thought somebody was really badly taking advantage of me.
Right.
That's different. But and I think that's it's only gotten better for me, my perspective about certain things, even in business. And I attribute that to a relationship with God that I never had before. So it's all about that. It's not about a miracle thing happening or God
Right.
speaking to you in a dream or something like that. It's just a change of perspective that comes over you.
So you would say, I'm glad we're talking about this, especially we're going to do that book because I'm definitely want to read it for our next podcast.
Mhm.
So being born again is an ongoing process then.
Absolutely, because look, you can, you know, faith is dead without action. People say that your faith is dead if actions don't follow it. So you can say, okay, I was baptized and born again and go continue in your life. It's up to you to make that change. But how do you do that? By getting more knowledge of God, more knowledge of Jesus, by getting closer to him, by understanding who he is. And you do get spirit filled, Chaz. I have to say it. You really do. And listen, I'm a guy. A lot of people knock my faith. I mean, online. You're a former mob guy. You go to prison. Everybody becomes born again until you're out again. I've heard that a million times, and I understand it.
And that does happen where people are in jail, and obviously some of those people need Christ, and the yes, I mean, could that be you're born again till you're out again? Maybe in some cases, but not
Yeah.
in all cases.
Yeah, in some cases, but I've seen some real spiritual conversions because I always said prison is fertile ground for God to do his work because people in there are defeated. So many of them come in destitute, they lose their families, they've got nothing to go out to. And so they start to turn to God because a lot of us turn to God. Listen, I turned to God when I was at the worst place in my life. I'm locked up, I'm in the hole.
Right.
Government told me I'll never see the street again. And so that's when I always say, when you're at your worst, God is at his best, at least your perspective of God, because who else do you turn to? So,
Right.
but some of them conversions are real and some aren't, I
And
mean,
some are.
like
And
everything.
God always said, "Bring me your sinners. Bring me." That's that's what He wants. That's like you said. That's fertile ground for Him. Okay, are you hearing this? If you are, this is a way out. Oh, you're not hearing it. You were hearing it, but you're not. Then you're going to mess up again. That's all it is, really.
Chaz, I see my mother-in-law, who was probably the most godly woman I ever knew, Cammie's mother. When she passed away, I had an experience. She died of cancer,
Yeah.
and she had breast cancer. It metastasized, went to her brain, but she was living with me. I was taking her to UCLA for treatments. And back then, she died in 2001. I was still, oh, I'm going to cure her, right? I had doctors from all over the world. I was giving her all these supplements, 30
Right.
tablets a day. I'm going to cure her. And she was going along with everything until at some point she just stopped. She just stopped, right? She had chemotherapy. So I'm taking her to UCLA one morning and I was angry with her because my wife was crying. Mom is not helping herself. And she had the bandana on her head. We're driving to UCLA, Chaz. I'll never forget this. And I looked at her and I said, Mom, what are you doing? You're rejecting everything. We're trying to help you. You don't want anything. My wife is crying every night. All your kids are crying. And she turned around, Chaz, and I get the chills when I think of this. And she had this angelic look on her face. And she turned to me like this. She said, Michael, I'm going home. I'm ready. There wasn't a hint of fear in that woman, not a hint of fear. She was so sure. And knowing how
Wow.
she lived her life, she was all about God. I mean, she was the most giving person. She was just, very
Oof.
simple, but she died 2 weeks later and she was ready to go. I mean, not a hint of, it was probably the most courageous thing I ever witnessed in my life because it was so real to me. And I said, wow,
Right. Right.
this has to be real. Certain things happen in your life
Yeah. I mean, that's as tough as anything you ever saw the wise guys do,
ever,
man.
ever. No fear, what's not a hint. And I said, my God, if there is a God, you just proved it to me. You just proved it to me because just
Wow.
where you lived and the way you died, it was unreal.
Wow.
And some of the most convincing evidence to me, when I go back, and my books are all about evidence, Chaz.
Right.
I went back and I saw, and this is historical. This is not made up or anything like that. This is history. How all the apostles willingly went to their death after they saw Jesus rise from the dead. They were all scared when he was nailed to the cross. Every one of them ran and hid. They were all hiding from the Romans, from the Jews that were saying, hey,
Right.
you're an associate of his, you got to die too. Then all of a sudden, something dramatically changed them where they were all ready to go to their death. Every one of them willingly went to their death and wouldn't give anything up. To me, that's powerful evidence. Very powerful.
Right.
So, you know,
Yeah.
I don't want to get preachy because it's not what I do, but
No, no, but I'm glad we talked a little bit about it because uh we're gonna do Is God Real by who's the author again?
Lee Strobel.
Lee Strobel.
And
I
Lee
think that
Strobel,
should,
let me give you a little background on Lee. Lee was
yeah.
an investigative journalist for the Chicago Tribune. He was a stone cold atheist all the way, mean kind of guy. His wife, out of nowhere, started to go to church and turn to Christianity, right? he was so incensed and mad at her. Okay, it almost broke up their marriage. And he said, I am an investigative journalist. I am going to prove to you that this is all nonsense, that you're being led, into nonsense. And so he goes out and does a 2-year study and becomes one of the strongest Christians that there are. He said, the evidence is irrefutable. And he's written a number of books that, a case for Christ, a case for creation, a case for God. He's written a number of books, and his last one is God real? And that's the age-old question. Is there really a God?
Right.
And it's something that people grapple with all over the world, and they will till the end of time. There's no question.
Right. Right. And that's because God says you got to have faith. So if he doesn't want you to be positive. Because look, let's face it, if God came down and stood and went into the White House and said, I want a press conference. And Jesus Christ got up there in a press conference with the president right next to him and said, I decided to come down because I want the world's in a bad place now, and I want to try to help everyone. If you believe and you try to do the right thing, may God, may my Father be with you, and then disappears in front of everybody and goes back up to heaven. Everybody be born again Christian.
Yeah.
Everybody. So, but he's saying, but that's not good, because then he becomes like Sonny. I make a joke, everybody laughs. I know I'm funny, but I'm not that funny. Right. Then he becomes Sonny, you see, because he's saying, well, it's not their love for me that's making them do this. It's their fear of God. And I don't want that, because exactly. I wanted to be like, you decided to come to me because you really do believe. And with that, I don't know if there's anything else to talk about right now, because
yeah, just to add to something, people, when you say faith, well, faith is like an abstract thing, but I remind people, think of how much faith you have in your everyday life. An example, you get into an airplane. You have zero control over your life once you're in the air in that plane.
Right.
There's nothing you can do to help yourself. But what is your faith based upon? Evidence. The evidence that the pilot knows what he's doing, the track record is pretty good, the FAA has done a great job. You're going to land that plane.
The odds are pretty good.
You're going down a two-way street, right, with no divider in the middle. People coming at 60 miles an hour. One guy moves into your lane, it's all over. Nothing you can do, maybe, to help yourself. But you have faith that most people who drive them properly, and it goes on and on and on. We have so much faith in our everyday lives. But when we think about faith in God, it's so abstract and we don't know who God is. But, listen, faith is an important aspect of life, but your faith has to be based on evidence. And I think there's enough evidence to support the fact that God exists. And we're going to go through this. And when we talk about this book, I want to talk about it as not a Christian or anything else. Just go over what he says and let people make sense of it or say no. But he really breaks it down, in a way.
He's a journalist, so he's not affected by making it godly. He wants to make, these are the facts. This happened.
You accept them or you don't. You refute them or whatever. But his arguments are extremely convincing, and we'll go over it. But
I'm looking forward to that. Well, everybody, it's always great, Michael, to talk to you. This is Chazz Palminteri,
The Wise, and I'm Michael Franzese,
The Wise Guy.
And thank you for tuning in again. We all wish you a very, very, very happy and wonderful and blessed and healthy new year. And let's hope that the world takes a turn for the best.
I feel the same way. God bless.
All right, brother. See you next time.